On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are discussing Strange New Worlds 306, Lost in Translation, right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen on two lifelong friends sit and chat about the old wagon train to the stars. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson. I wasn't expecting that. I never expect you to pull out some old piece of trivia like that.
All right, well, yeah. It's one of my favorite things is trying to, because I never think of them ahead of time either. It's always just trying to surprise you.
Yeah.
And myself. So we're here to talk about this episode, Lost in Translation. I really enjoy it. I thought Bill Murray put up a commanding performance.
Son of a bitch, I was going to make the same joke.
Yes. Overall, I feel like the main thrust of this episode is getting to see Kirk and Uhura together for the first time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the very end, just a little bit of Spock sitting at the table with him.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice because they could have easily. They're sprinkling Kirk in this season in such a weird way. Of course, I mean good old James T.
Mm-hmm.
That, he's gotten this weird relationship with La'an, who she knows him better than he knows her. Mm-hmm. Now he's close to Uhura, and he's just had these sort of distant, it's like all these characters are making connections with Kirk, but he's not even on the ship yet.
Yeah.
Pike has this weird alternate universe connection. Mm-hmm. Uhura now has this friendship with him. La'an has this attraction / what might have been in an alternate universe with him, and it's three completely different connections.
Which La'an's relationship with him honestly seems a little engineered.
Is she the engineer?
No, but she's genetically engineered.
Oh, good call.
Or the descendant of someone who was genetically engineered.
She's not genetically engineered.
Right.
That's funny. That was funny. It confused me because I was like, wait, isn't she she's the
security
chief. Golly. And she's a stickler for the security files. Keeping them tidy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. One of my favorite lines of the episode was, you're friends with Sam. I am not interested in being hit on right now. You're friends with Sam. That was very good timing and very well written and played.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
And we're really starting to differentiate Sam from James a little bit. And really, is this the first time we've really gotten to know this universe's James Kirk?
Yes.
Yeah, because the other one was the alternate. We've met two alternate universe James T. Kirks.
Yep.
So they've established these relationships with three crew members, one of which isn't even in the original series, and one of which never meets Kirk. Well, I'm sorry, does meet Kirk after his accident, but we don't really get to see them interact a lot.
Well, was you talking about Pike?
Yeah. I just mean we don't get to see them interact a lot.
Yeah, well, I went back because I always remember the line wrong. And I went back and I wrote it down verbatim in the menagerie when the admiral or whatever the hell he was says to Kirk, "You ever meet Chris Pike?" Kirk says, "I met him when he was promoted to fleet captain."
Oh.
That is all he said. What he doesn't say is, we also met several times after.
Wait,
so
do we know that in the Prime timeline they met many times after?
We don't. But importantly, he didn't say they didn't.
Right. But they met when in this exact situation. That's neat.
Yeah.
It's neat, and also it's neat because they had to make it temporary because I'm sure he's just going to be a regular captain for the rest of the series, and it's like, oh, let's make it temporary, but just to make sure that still stays in canon.
Which annoyed me a little bit. I was like, you bastards! Like, this is what Akiva Goldsman, I think, was talking about when he was like, we like brushing up against canon, sometimes body checking canon. Like,
yeah,
you assholes.
Yeah. Well, this feels more like brushing up against, and more like even just like conforming almost unnecessarily so, especially after we had the episode with time travel a few weeks ago. I feel like the canon's kind of thrown out the window at this point. They can do anything they want.
Yeah.
While still maintaining some, I guess they get to decide which things to keep and which things to throw away.
Yeah.
And obviously they want that original crew to eventually form. Mm-hmm. And so that we're still getting those relationships forming, which is really fun. I'm surprised they didn't save, like, he saw Spock playing chess, which was a lot of fun. He's like, him like, commenting on Spock's chess game.
Oh yeah,
that was pretty great. But I kind of was surprised when they sit down to chat for the first time here in this episode. I was like, oh, I'm surprised they didn't save that for a Spock and Kirk episode. You know, like save that conversation for when it can really be on screen. Them connecting over being frustrated with Sam was pretty funny though.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. I was fine with the way that Kirk and Spock met here. And I really love that his first interaction with Spock really is him correcting his chess moves, because that's the first time we see them together in the original series, is they're playing three-dimensional chess and Where No Man Has Gone Before. And Spock is very smugly saying, I'll have you check in your next move. And Kirk winds up beating him. They get into the turbo lift and Gary Mitchell comes in and he goes, who won or whatever, and he's like, or how'd it go? And Spock says he played most illogically, and and Gary looks at Kirk, and Kirk like runs his thumb along his neck, goes so like, yeah, I enjoyed that nod. That was a lot of fun.
It's really fun, and it's also fun that like when they finally do play, Kirk has a little bit of a leg up because he's watched him play before. You know what I mean? Like he's probably seen some of the flaws in his game from afar while watching him play here, which is kind of fun.
Which one of the things I love about that is the fact that Kirk is the only person who ever beats Spock at chess, is that Kirk does play most illogically. Like Spock is very logical and Kirk thinks outside of the box. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's so informative to their relationship going forward, and how Spock is sort of like brought around to the idea that logic isn't the end of like choice making, basically.
Right. Looks like he tells
it's the beginning in a way.
Yeah. Like Spock tells Valeris in Star Trek 6, logic isn't the end of understanding, what is it? What do you say? Logic is the beginning of understanding, not the end. Yeah,
exactly. I was vaguely remembering that line. I just couldn't remember it. So, but yeah.
Me too for a minute.
Anyway, what did you think of the, I guess the main thrust of this episode, the whole using Uhura as the translator, not she's not doing. I loved it because like she's getting this transmission, and it's her whole job is to figure out these transmissions and like figuring out language, things that people are using. And we saw another Federation crew member not be able to decipher it.
Yeah,
and then she is able to like maintain her composure because this is what I do, like I make connections with this, and I've realized its language, and now I can process it. I thought that was really well done.
I liked several things about the episode. Like I really liked the themes about them dealing with loss, both Uhura and Una dealing with the loss of Himmer, very differently, but in very honest ways. I actually God help me, I liked Pelia okay this episode. She was okay, yeah. I liked the themes of trying to show empathy and listen to people that you don't understand, and all of that was nice, was very cool, and even stretched into the Jim and Sam relationship. We get a little sprinkling that there's tension with them, so much so that Sam, they both got daddy issues. Sam storms off and shit. And
it was more than sprinkling. This is pretty big scenes of just them talking about their issues with each other. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, but it was also nice because it makes sense. It sort of fixes Operation Annihilate in the original series when Kirk finds that Sam is dead and it's just Shatner with a mustache. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't. He reacts like he's upset, but he reacts to Spock getting infected and possibly dying way more than he does his brother dying. And so you get an idea that they might become estranged.
Yeah.
Their differences might just be too damn great. So, and most things on the original series, they leave a lot open, so you can they can play with it. I loved that Himmer's death mattered more than we were initially led to believe. I liked that his absence and what happened to him lingered with crew members, because it felt very much like he made the sacrifice and we're moving on to the next thing in the next week, which is one thing I don't like about episodic television.
Yeah, me too. Something that I really liked was they tied together a couple of things that was sort of, I'm a sucker for the "this is why Starfleet matters" kind of plot lines. I really am. It's it's what Star Trek's really, to me, is that's the heart of it all. It's we built this organization that's really trying to do good,
on rock and roll.
Yep, I built it on rock and roll.
They were Jefferson's starship, Matt.
That's true. That's true. I really liked the connection between the conversation that Kirk has with La'an about how his father always chose to go be there for other people instead of him. Mm-hmm. And that must mean that's so important. Yeah. And that's how he justifies his whole life, and that's why he's chosen this life in a way, is because this must be important, And he's like, it is important, La'an tells him, I'm one of the people that was saved. Yeah. And then you turn that to the Uhura story, and he has that conversation with Uhura about, well, face death. Don't look away from it. Look at it. Look what you've lost. And that looking at what she's lost and understanding what she's lost and seeing that was communication, and that's what allows her to realize that these are people in pain. They're not showing me these things to horrify me. They're showing these things because these are pain centers for me, and they're trying to highlight my pain centers. And then that allows her to go oh, I'm connecting with these beings who are losing someone like I lost someone, and I want to help them. And I think that whole thing was really cool and well tied together.
That was well done. I love Chapel and Spock's conversation.
Yeah,
because even their conversation touched on the communication themes, the Schrodinger's relationship metaphor. Yeah, she's like, it's a metaphor, Spock, a messy one, albeit, but
let's take care of the cat, see what it grows to be.
Stroke the pussy, Spock. Don't hurt the pussy. Stroke it.
No comment.
You liked it. overall, like, while I liked the themes and everything, I didn't really love the episode too much. Like, it was kind of, it was like, I don't care for like the everything that happened on the show. I'm just like, it's another Vision, I know. And like, pretty much as soon as they show up in the nebula, and she's like, this isn't any ordinary nebula. I was like, okay.
Yeah. As soon as she had the like noise,
yeah,
I was like
when the Transformers started talking to her, yeah,
when she saw Hammer, I was like, something is talking to her. There's someone out in the nebula is having a thing. Now, I still liked the episode, but like, yeah, it was very much a paint by numbers, this kind of episode, I felt like I've seen this 1,000 times before.
Yeah, and they're like, the station keeps getting, every time we fix it, it breaks down. I'm like, it's sabotage, the creatures are getting people's heads because it's killing them. Like, I knew exactly all of that.
I knew it also because, like, it's a gas station. And it's like, as soon as I saw they were pulling up to it, like, create a gas station and use natural resources of this place, I was like, okay, that's going to cause a problem. Like, and they're going to, like, tell us how this space gas is hurting the population, in some way.
It's an oil allegory.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, one thing I really did enjoy about the beginning of this episode, when Pike's just kind of laying out what's going on, is the frontier feel of them setting up a fueling station, It's just like, we don't get a lot of that in Trek, and that sort of like, we're getting ready for a war, so we need to like set up a supply line thing. I just always enjoy that kind of stuff, and I feel like in the older Trek we got a lot of that. In the newer Trek, it feels like everything works by magic. They never, very rarely does it feel like you really have to deal with these sorts of like very practical, like, oh, we need fuel for the ship kind of issues as much.
Right.
And I just thought that was neat. It made it feel more frontierish.
They did on the original series at the beginning, at least, because and it's very fresh in my memory because Effie and I have been watching this stuff. So,
yeah,
where they're talking about like, we need lithium cells and all that shit, because the fuel is gone out or whatever. I loved we actually, I think the first time ever see the Bussard collectors used for their intended purpose.
Yeah, which I've seen them spin in that way, in different episodes, but they don't open. The remastered stuff. Yeah. Wasn't that cool?
Yeah, like I don't think they've ever shown us that.
Yeah, that was really neat.
So really that was cool. But yeah, it was a very paint by numbers, but I liked all of the themes and what they were going for with a lot of it. Yeah, it was good character stuff, and I can see, you take these moments to build two characters into a friendship, like you establish Uhura and Kirk's friendship, so that later, when we get another chance with these two characters, it'll matter, Yeah, and so it was an important episode, I think. Still not sold on Paul Wesley as Kirk. He just doesn't feel right. Yeah, I hear you. Sorry. It's hard. I don't want to harp on it. Past. He doesn't look to me anything like Kirk, and or sound. No, I agree. I think like some of the acting choices he's making are like good directions for it, but yeah, I don't know. It's also like just a different take on Kirk. It's just hard because I've got these two different versions in my head of like the original series Kirk, the 2009 Kirk, and like kind of I keep thinking about the things that were through lines between those two and the things that worked and made me feel like Chris Pine was pulling it off, and I'm not seeing that same kind of, I'm not feeling that here. I felt when I watched, and it doesn't feel like something that can't be done, because in 2009 when I watched Star Trek I was like, oh, Chris Pine is doing it. Like, he's doing a great job. Like, so just the way he delivers lines, the way he uses his eyes, the way he uses his face, like, it just all works. And this character, they're, like, doing things with his, like, dialogue that work okay, and, like, some of his acting choices, but he just doesn't, he's not inhabiting the Kirk character. He just doesn't feel like William Shatner at all. No. And, they're not helping with all this cookie shit. You know, I've been saying Paul Wesley's Kirk reminds me of a guy that's trying to sell me a house. You know, guys, when you go to like open houses, they always have cookies. So
that's funny. I don't think I've heard you say that because have we had this conversation?
We've had the conversation, I think.
Because you know who he reminds me of.
Phil Dunphy.
Phil Dunphy. Have we had this conversation?
Yes, we've said.
Okay,
yes,
sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, he reminds me of Phil Dunphy. Like he looks like Phil Dunphy.
Yeah,
and yeah, you're right. It's like that weird Phil Dunphyism of like I don't know. I just can't. It's hard for me to get past that to see him as Kirk. Whatever.
Yeah. So with Uhura, he's just like, "Can I go get you a cookie? Let's close this thing." Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling him. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I don't think it's his fault. I just think, like, I don't know that he's, like, cast well for this role.
No. It's because they liked him from Vampire Diaries. Yeah. I mean, or whatever it was. Like,
I feel like it's the kind of thing where, like, if you're trying to cast someone like Kirk, you really should, like, cast a wide net and, like, find the right person.
Yeah.
That can pull this off. And I think they did that in 2009. I don't think they've done it here. I'm still enjoying him as a character, but he just doesn't feel like Kirk to me. So those moments like him sitting down with Spock for the first time don't feel good to me. Like they don't feel like that important somehow.
Yeah, which I think I give Ethan Peck a little more leeway because Leonard Nimoy... But it's the same thing with Shatner, though. Like... Leonard Nimoy was such a singular actor. No one talked like him. No one sounded like him. No one looked like him. And it's the same thing with Shatner, though, for real. Even though I think Chris Pine really did it well. Also, I think Ethan Peck does Spock better than Zachary Quinto did Spock.
Yeah, I think I can see that.
Chris Pine was kind of the perfect upgrade because, you know, he had the mannerisms, but way scaled down. Mm-hmm. To where you could see it, but you didn't see the stuff you didn't want to see. Yeah,
well, that's the thing is for years we've been seeing parodies of Kirk. Mm-hmm. All those years, and so when we walk in and he's doing Kirk, but in a subtle way, it felt really good. And this actor doesn't seem to be really doing Kirk. He's just playing a new character, and so yeah, I guess like I'm looking for this new character to excite me on his own. But when they do, like I said, when they do things like, oh look, it's 3 original series cast members sitting together on the table, like. I got what they were doing intellectually, but it didn't feel like Kirk and Spock and Uhura were all together. Even though Spock and Uhura do feel like proto versions of themselves to me.
Yeah, I'd feel like whoever cast, or when they cast him, they were thinking of James Cawley in Phase 2 instead of William Shatner, like because he's very, very, very thin and tall and gangly and just he does not feel like Shatner at all to me, which that's fine. I mean, whatever. But clearly it's not fine because it still weighs on me.
Yeah.
But it's preying on my mind, Paul.
My point with it is like, if you're not going to do that, you need to do things to make me love this version. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to, you either have to really strongly connect the versions, and I feel like they've done that with Spock and Uhura, or you have to just like do something new and make me care about that version you're creating. Mm-hmm. Give me a new reason to care. So you said we got some feedback?
Yeah, we do. A couple weeks ago, Stu wrote us on YouTube for Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and I missed that one. He says, thank you, Dave, for acknowledging that the Kirk we've seen in Strange New Worlds has largely been an alternate timeline version of him, allowing for him to behave differently than his TOS self. Well, that's over. I mean, it should be accepted anyway, since we're apparently fine with how that applies to the rest of the show's cast, but with him, it's been more contentious, and I'm a little bored of it by now, to be frank. Well, sorry for the last few minutes, Stu. Jesus. One thing, though, what happened to that Kirk's body? If you think about it, people running a eugenics program might find all sorts of interesting things in the body of a man from the 23rd century if they did an autopsy and other examinations on it. Futuristic medical implants, vaccines, traces of diseases that, while harmless in his time, are potentially devastating in the present day. Hell, maybe it was those remains that Section 31 were keeping on Daystrom Station in Picard Season 3. That would be interesting, but, Terry Matalas said, is Kirk from Viridian 3.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I'm saying is Terry Matalas said it. Like, they could change it. That's not just a showrunner saying a thing. Ain't canon.
Sure. Not on screen, but yeah.
But I do like the idea that changes to the timeline could be partially from them taking that version of Kirk's body and playing with it.
Sure. Yeah.
And getting tech and vaccines and
absolutely, yeah.
All
this time travel is causing those sorts of changes, and that could definitely have some ripples.
Not to mention, like, I have to believe that they're gonna bring up the fact that La'an left her freaking gun on Khan's bed in Tomorrow. Like, they did that for a reason. Maybe it's just to stoke our brains. But
yeah, no, I don't know that they'll ever go back to it. But it is like, I definitely do think it was on purpose for that episode.
I feel like they cast well enough for that temporal investigations officer. I think we'll see her again. And she'll be like, what the hell are you doing here? And she's like, did you leave a gun? What do you mean? Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, maybe.
Tim Castillo writes us, says, you heard a alien. Matt and Dave, thank you for this podcast. It is honestly one I look forward to the most. That being said, be sure to take care of yourselves, fellas.
Thanks, man.
Trying.
We're doing our best.
I took care of myself earlier in the John. Where do you think they're going with La'an and Jim? Definitely some feelings from La'an, but it seems like they're setting up more for these two than just a basic romance. Considering Kirk's future past with Khan, will this end up being a further divergence from the previously established timeline?
Yeah, that's really interesting. If, like, this happens and La'an and him have a relationship, and then in the future the Khan thing happens, like, he knows who Khan is, obviously, from history, but he'll also have that weird personal connection. Oh, I dated your granddaughter.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's weird.
Like, that's why Khan hated Kirk so much, is because he took him aside and says, by the way, I split your great-granddaughter like a pea. For soup, Khan. For soup.
Khan's sitting on SETI Alpha 5 with a shotgun on the porch.
I would have made him marry her.
That was good.
He continues, what'd you think of Jim and Spock? They had Jim include a pause in his speech. That tickled me. That tickled you. The one thing that he did that acted at all like Kirk ever? Yes. And I noticed it and chuckled and went, well, that's nice, I guess.
Yeah. I do think there was a little bit more with this version of Kirk where they were, like, really trying. They were trying to make this the version of Kirk, but, like, yeah. I'm in the same boat as you are. It's just I'm having a hard time seeing it.
And I know as part of it's just like I'm 40. I'm 39. Let's not age myself prematurely, but I've spent an inordinate amount of time with Shatner as Kirk. It's just hard to get through it. It's hard to get over that.
Yeah, for sure.
And the fact that I was able to so willingly with Chris Pine, because he did such an amazing job, really kind of spoiled me.
Yeah, No, I completely agree. Like, he had such a hard task to perform, and he performed it at such a high level and pulled it off. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to get that every time these characters are recast, you know?
Mm-mm.
And I think, like, I think you're right about Ethan Peck pulling it off better than Zachary Quinto did, but I think we just had so much affection for Zachary Quinto after Siler. After he played Siler, there's a lot of people with, like, at least I did. I thought, this guy's like gonna be like a big geek actor going forward, and it just felt like good to have him in there. And I liked him as an actor, and I was just like, I like him. Yeah, sure, Spock. That seems good. He like looks enough like him. That seems like a good fit. But yeah. I think Ethan Peck's doing a better job with the characterization.
Yeah. Tim says, did you also notice that the 2 crew deaths in this episode were given a bit more weight than usual? Just something that seemed notable to me considering how disposable crewmen often are in Trek. Hailing frequencies open, sir. Tim Castillo. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for the kind words about the podcast. It really makes me smile. Tim writes in over on MCU Cast sometimes, and there's been a lot of running jokes on the MCU Cast lately, and on Multiverse News, that I just keep talking about Star Trek, like, in almost every episode for, like, one reason or another. It's been, like, a running joke, and, like, so many... it's like a joke that, like, we'll be doing the live stream, and we'll see the list of the viewers going down. Like, well, we lost 10 people because Matt's been talking about Star Trek for 2 minutes. So it's nice to hear that there is some crossover between all the shows that we do and some Star Trek lovers out there.
Yeah. I do the same thing on DC on Screen. Like, I'll just start, like, rattle off a quote or something, and Jason's like, what's that from? And I'm like, oh, that's from Star Trek. We had a bit of that on the last DC on Screen because Akiva Goldsman was giving an interview and talking about how he's going to be writing Constantine 2, the Keanu Reeves sequel.
Nice.
And I was like, how is he doing that? Isn't he busy? He's executive producing Star Trek.
Yeah, it's like all the time. Partially because it's just a, especially on Multiverse News, because there's so many... we're talking about the universes that we love, like the news about these universes, and so many of the news pieces, I have examples from the universe that I grew up with most, which is Star Trek. And so, like, I'm like, oh, well, the interesting part about that is we went through that Star Trek did the same thing when they did this reboot or this recast or this da-da-da-da-da. So there's always just some, like, example from Trek I can pull from.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Stu actually writes in for this episode. Says, stop, Himmer Tom. He says, hey, sorry for no email last week, guys. There was a massively important issue on my end. I certainly didn't write one, then accidentally email it to my address instead of the show's because they both start with ST.
It's hilarious. You probably listen to the show like, dang, where's my email? We definitely were like, Stu didn't write in.
Yeah, is he okay?
Yeah, is Stu all right?
Stu says, couldn't decide what the sound Uhura was hearing was more like. Cylons, Transformers theme song singer. Hey, I said Transformers. There you go.
Did.
Or the chorus from Beastie Boys' Intergalactic. The last one makes the most sense with James T. Kirk showing up. There's no reason Star Trek can't do a zombie episode. Just chalk it up to an alien parasite commandeering the bodies or something. Star Trek did, like, a ton of zombie episodes. It was called Star Trek Voyager. Everyone just walked around going, oh, wait, no, that was the audience, sorry.
No.
I'm just kidding. When I've rewatched it, what little I have, it came off, it was better.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Why did you sabotage the station? Another Beastie Boys reference. Don't they know the view screen on that bridge is supposed to be just a screen and not a window? That dream isn't canon. Yeah. Did that security officer just try to shoot the fleeing Ramon in the back with a phaser set to kill, not stun? The sparks off the wall would indicate so. Why would the sparks off the wall indicate so?
Yeah, I think if you use a taser, it'll spark on a wall.
Now, I have a couple of phasers in my living room, and they have different settings. So, like, I think, it's not just stun or kill. There are settings. There's like a dial. Maybe at a certain point, like maybe a 6. Because the guy was in a, elevated state.
Yeah, he's in rage,
Yeah. A lot of adrenaline.
Yeah. You gotta calibrate that dial, man. You gotta calibrate your response.
That's right.
Appropriate force and all that.
I feel like we should write a movie called Appropriate Force.
There's a song. Oh gosh, I can't remember. I want to say it's Ylvis. And it's like a club banger, like really like lots of heavy beats in the background, but the chorus just says, "Put the right amount of pressure on it, put the right amount of pressure." It's like, like normally you hear a club banger and it's always like, go to the extreme, do the thing, it's like always like do it to the biggest version of it. And it's just really funny. Put the right amount of pressure on it, put the right amount of pressure on it.
All right.
It's a good song.
Let's see. Do you think any of these tiny / other dimensional species that Starfleet encounters all the time ever actually join the Federation? That would be cool to try to see.
Yeah, I was wondering that if they would then try to go back and connect with these beings. I could see Sam wanting to can we study this, Captain? Or can we do an extra pass around the nebula or whatever, or the Star
Farm or whatever the hell it was.
It was Star Nursery, not farm.
Star Nursery.
He said Star Farm, and I was like, "What? Sounds like a Facebook game."
Yeah, it does. That's funny because I was just thinking with Stu's question, I realized that the Federation are basically just intergalactic Mormons, just riding around on their warp bicycles trying to recruit different species.
Yeah, I mean, sure. In that one way that they do want other people to join their crew or whatever. Sure.
Howdy neighbor, we see you've got warp drive. Let me pull out the Church of Latter-day Spocks or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Surely someone else could have helmed the ship after the situation was resolved, not the sleep-deprived Uhura. Well, he did tell her to go take a nap.
Yeah. You just did that last thing do this thing real quick before you leave.
Yeah. And isn't that always the way with upper management?
Mm-hmm.
I could see you're sleep deprived. Just go sweep and mop the floors.
Yeah, just do 6 more hours of work, please.
Yeah. This episode kind of makes sense of why Kirk doesn't react as much as you'd think to his brother's death in the original series. I said the same thing, Stu.
Mm-hmm. Of course you did.
Just earlier in the show.
Of course you two would be saying the same thing.
Shut up, Matt. We are not the same person. You've met me, and you know that I'm afraid of planes that would never go to Glasgow. Nullifies it right there.
I've seen you on a boat.
You have not. Oh,
yes,
yeah.
I have.
We went on a cruise together. That's right.
Yeah, I did. I've seen you singing and dancing on a boat.
That's right. That's right.
Dave, I don't know. Have you ever done karaoke other than that time?
Yeah.
You have? Yeah?
Yeah.
Dave owned at karaoke on that cruise.
I did.
He got up there and killed it. Singing, dancing around, pulling full-on Blues Brothers dance moves up there. It was really good. Very good.
Yeah. No, it was terrible.
It was great. It was
and
great.
I was quite drunk.
I know, and it was great. I wish you'd do it more often.
Why?
It's my favorite version of you.
Yeah. You're like, yes, it's the version of Dave that makes me feel the best about myself.
No, dude.
Look at him fail on stage.
Dude, I thought you were great. This is not a joke. This is the... I thought you were freaking awesome. I always tell people about that. You were great.
Yeah, there's a reason you tell people about that.
Because it was great.
Oh, God. Stu continues, this episode was fine, though it felt a bit by the numbers with the encountering a new obtuse life form that doesn't convey its meaning so well plot. Maybe if they hadn't mentioned the Gorn proximity at the start, because I was kinda expecting that to be a focus of the story, especially with the references to their previous encounter with them. Focus on Uhura was nice, and I thought the Kirk addition was fun. Una and Pelia was fine, but it also felt a bit like padding. I'm glad the Chapel and Spock stuff was kept to a minimum, though, with all the focus it's been getting this season so far. Yeah, I liked the amount that Chapel and Spock were there. The Una and Pelia stuff was really great, like, because I liked that, that Una was like, you're sloppy! And that was like her stated reasoning, and then it turns out Pelia gave her like a C because her work was sloppy, and you're like, aha, there's a little bit of it.
Yeah,
you jerk.
Yeah, and it's I really liked the you're like a space hippie. I really enjoyed that.
I would have actually paid money if. It's Paramount Plus, so I guess I did. But I would have paid a little more money if when she called her a space hippie, if Pelia had just say, and you're a Herbert.
A Herbert?
Because of the space hippie episode in the original series, and if you're a square, you're a Herbert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't remember that.
Yeah, man. Charles Napier.
Sweet.
Classic awful episode.
Gotta love those. Yep.
Oh, that's it. That's all of our feedback.
Well, Stu hit on a couple of points that we like directly were talking about the exact, having the same feelings. Like he said, paint by numbers. This is the exact an episode we've seen many times. Lots of good relationship stuff happening, but overall, just kind of a normal Star Trek episode. Which, you know, the good thing about Strange New Worlds is I really can't imagine myself just throwing this on. Like, or if I caught an episode on TV, just like, oh, I'll kick back and watch this. You know, I do really like the way that they're going back. It feels like old Trek. It feels like a safe, you know, like let's sit back and watch an episode of Star Trek kind of show instead of, you know, the big overarching plots or whatever. I did, just like Stu, because they'd mentioned the Gorn, I was like on guard for like something Gornish to happen, or like this to be some sort of Gorn plot or something like this. This communication she was receiving or whatever. But
well, the episode wasn't called Gorn Hub, so I didn't expect anything with the Gorn. Really,
that's how they communicate, through the Gorn Hub. All right. Well, it's been fun, man. I'm excited to finish out the season. 4 more episodes, right?
Yeah, and next week is the Lower Decks crossover, which I'm super stoked about. Yeah,
I didn't know when it was coming. That's awesome. I cannot wait. That's really, really great. Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll be back really soon with more Star Trek Universe. Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.